Hi, everyone. I'm Leslee Dernberger, and welcome to Homeschooling High School. I am super excited to have you guys in here. I was just telling Sandy before we got started here that I love doing my Homeschooling High School webinar because I get such a mix of veteran homeschool moms like Sandy and maybe Jenny. I'm not sure. I didn't have a chance to ask her. But then also those of you who are just getting started. So I am going to cover the law tonight. I know those of you who've been homeschooling already know this, so bear with me. And I am going to go through that pretty quickly because I want to make sure that everybody's really has an orientation to the law. And I'm using Illinois for those of you who are not in Illinois. I'm using Illinois as an example because I have a lot of my families coming in here where I live. Okay. And it also will help you to know what to look for. Right? It will give you an orientation for what questions to ask, what kinds of things you want to be looking for in your laws, in your state. And I'll also give you a resource, HSLDA, you'll see it, that they have all the homeschooling laws of every state. So you don't have anything to worry about. Okay. All right. So let's get going here. And I'm going to share with you while I have this up, just to give you an orientation. You know, I get teased all the time because I'll just start talking like we're all old friends. And that's how I feel, right? We're all in this together. I've been sharing lately with a lot of different groups and a lot of families. And, you know, it's just this community right now and this community building, right? And especially mama bears who are like, oh, I'm done. You know, I need to do what's best for my child right now. And it's just pretty awesome. But I do want to give you an orientation, at least so you know my background and what I kind of bring to the table, so to speak, and why I do what I do. And I am incredibly passionate. And at Aspire, what we say is, if you look at our website, it says every child deserves to be the hero of their own story. And that is what we live by. But really at the foundation of everything we do, my heart and the heart of my team is to strengthen families. And I feel very blessed that the Lord has kind of put all of my experience together to try to serve and help all of you in this time. And as you can see here, I am a former homeschooling mom of 4 amazing, and I say kids, because 2 are thriving in college, 2 are in careers, and they are doing incredibly well. Okay. You're going to hear that over and over and over again about homeschoolers. And on my YouTube channel, by the way, I'm doing a series of inspiring stories, and I'll be doing a panel soon. But you can go on there. And the first 2, I have 2 of my 4 because they have very different stories in terms of their journey, right, in homeschooling. And I want everyone to see that no matter what your journey is, right, what success looks like, because in our household, success is, you know, good character and being able to be happy and being able to think critically and really evaluate and look at the world. And in our family too, you know, faith is very, very important at the center. So I have done that, but more than that, I actually have taught locally and online and in person, like I say, for over 12 years. I started a school, I've started co-ops, I've been on boards of other co-ops, but my background, I bring other unique things to the table because I'm a former litigator and I literally grew up on Capitol Hill. So everything that's going on right now in my passion, I call myself like a government nerd and a Constitution geek, really I'm just so passionate about what's going on right now. So I kind of bring kind of those pieces to the table. And then I've also now been a consultant, and people started to hire me to help their families a little over 5 years ago. So I've also been working with so many families, both also when I taught, I mentored just hundreds and hundreds of teens and families. So we got kind of close, and I'm really blessed because I'm still very close with many of them. All right. So I want to start here with this one. In my getting started, when I kind of end with this, but because we're talking about high school, and I know it's such a stressful time, that I want to encourage even you veteran homeschool moms, right? As you head into these teen years, and oh my goodness, right? And there are changes, but imagine your teen excited to learn. And those of you who've been homeschooling a long time, you'd be like, oh yeah, they're always excited to learn. Sometimes that might shift a little bit, right? And I'm hoping what I give you today will help with that. Imagine them engaging in deep conversations and accountable for their actions. That was really big in our house, right? Learning new skills. I love this one. So those of you who are watching this, who are just getting started, imagine your teen having time to just think and just be. And my favorite is think about them having time to dare to dream. And you're going to give them that space and that opportunity to dream. And I can't tell you how powerful that is, because when you make education theirs, and it's not your goals, but their goals that you're helping them to achieve, boy, oh boy, that changes the game. It truly does. So those of you who are just starting this, here's a story, a personal story that I share a lot of times. It's probably even in my interview of my daughter, but she couldn't stand math. Oh my gosh, hated it. Although she was very good at higher math, right? But arithmetic just absolutely eluded her because of the way her brain works. She's what's called gifted, or 2E. Actually, I don't know that she's 2E. She's gifted. All of my kids are. So sometimes I come from that perspective. But the point is, there was a disconnect and she couldn't stand it. And she would fight us on it, but she would do it and we would get through it. But junior high was tough, right? She just really wasn't wanting to do it, but she kind of got algebra and she really liked algebra. But here's the thing. As we go through this and I share with you, you'll see the process that I used with her and all of my kids helped her to focus on her dreams. Okay, so I'll put a pin in that story and we'll come back to it in just a minute. All right, you're going to learn this about me if you haven't attended any of my webinars. You're going to get some memes and one of my favorite cartoons, Calvin and Hobbes. I just love this. I think grown-ups just act like they know what they're doing. Do you guys feel that way sometimes? I know I do. Excuse me. I know that's very true for me. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start here. The positive aspects of homeschooling high school. And this is for everyone. You veteran homeschool moms, though, will kind of get this, but I want to reiterate it, right? Because I know when you're getting ready to enter high school, and that just feels like a whole new ball game, right? And it reaches a level of anxiety where you're like, oh my gosh, this counts, this matters. I hope by the end of this, you're going to see, oh my gosh, it is a no-brainer. As a matter of fact, it is so exciting what you can do in high school and with your teens. But here are some of the positive aspects, right? Sleep. Hello, sleep, very important, very important. Personalized academic plans, right? As I'm talking about pursuing their goals. Oh my gosh, I can't begin to tell you this next one, how vitally important this is. Life skills and time management. I say underneath that colleges like homeschoolers. This is a myth that's out there. I hear it all the time, that homeschooling's gonna put them at a disadvantage for college admittance. Oh no, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, like I said, Ivy Leagues down, they get it that homeschoolers are already so successful at these soft skills and at this time management. So that transition to college is like a no-brainer. And if you do some of the things that I talk about in here to help them, including the next thing on here, like dual enrollment, if they're ready for that, their junior, senior year, even sophomore year, right? I was just talking to a client of mine today. Her daughter is super, super bright. She's just really, really smart cookie. And she's pretty advanced in math. And so we were talking this morning about even as a sophomore, just now turning 15, taking a dual enrolled college class for math to start making sure that's, kind of legitimized, right? But also just giving her what she needs. So there are just a wonderful amount of things and options to choose from. Another thing that is so fantastic that people just don't get this opportunity, right? Especially in our culture these days. And that, I call it learning how to fail forward before college. Learning that failing is a positive and what you can learn from it. And that's why I call it failing forward. And I borrowed that, I'll give credit, although I've heard if you use it often enough, it becomes yours. But that is from one of my absolute favorite leadership mentors. I really feel like he's a mentor at this point, John Maxwell. And leadership and critical thinking are my passions. So you'll see that's kind of built into everything that I do. So I'll give you that heads up as well. Okay. The next one, they can take ownership of their own education. This is not, even you veteran homeschool moms, right? When it comes to high school, we start to get a little like, oh, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that. Yes, they do. If it's how they need to, if they are going to reach the goals they have, right? But you can just take a deep breath and step back and be like, that's the goal you said you had. So what can I do to help you? But if you don't do your math, remember that story I was telling you? If you don't do your math, then you're not going to be able to reach your goals, right? Seriously, overall happier teens, but I'm telling you, that doesn't mean, like in my household, we had, for a variety of reasons, right? Anxiety, we dealt with some anxiety. Like I said, I have some twice exceptional kids. We dealt with depression, but what a privilege and an honor to be able to be right there and guide them through that and mentor them through that, and coming out so healthy on the other side because we are there, right? We're there. And our relationships, my husband and I just thank God every day for the relationships that we have with our young adult children. They're, like I say, I not only love them, but I like them, right? And that's not always the case. That's not always the case. And they like each other a lot. So that's kind of cool. They get to explore their passions more. Oh my gosh, what you can do with internships, apprenticeships, mentoring. They can volunteer more. There are just so many positive aspects. Now, there are also some considerations. So this page is important, especially for those of you who are kind of either just starting, not sure what you want to do, whether you want to put your child back into school at some point, if the world stops spinning upside down, then there are definitely things you want to think about that are very important when you're putting together a high school plan. So as I say here, if they're possibly transitioning back to public school, you want to make sure that you're talking to them about making it as easy as possible, right? On you, you might want to talk to them. What credits and what will they accept that can go on their transcript? If you're looking to get a diploma, that's a better way to put it, from your public school, then you need to make sure you talk to them about what it is that they're going to accept, right? So for example, it doesn't mean around here, the high schools will automatically accept if a program is accredited. There is zero requirement, I'm going to show you the law in a minute, to be accredited in Illinois, but that's just a parameter that our high schools have said, oh, well, if people have jumped through the hoops to be accredited, then we won't question it. But if like you're at a private school, which is what you are in Illinois, and this is why I'm going to go through the law really quickly in a minute. Just like at any private school, they might dig a little deeper into the class, right? To say whether or not they're going to. So you could even maybe get stuff pre-approved with, usually it's the student services director who you're dealing with, okay? Sometimes you have to take high school tests to get credit for a class. Here's what I'm talking about. So my kids My older two played, all of mine played high school sports, but my older two played for the high school. And then they kind of decided, because some parents complained because we were using this much of our tax money. Anyway, that, excuse me. And so they kind of changed the rules and they said, okay, if you're going to continue, then anytime somebody asks for a transcript, we're the one that are going to give them to them. We're not going to give them yours. Hello? I'm the private school. That's not what they do with other private schools, but yeah. Anyway, bottom line is they said, no, but we'll find a test that's equivalent to the classes that they're taking, which by the way, were pre-approved by them. Just saying. We'll find a test for an equivalent class, and they have to take the finals for that class, and that will be their grade on their transcript. Are you kidding me? I ran that by my kids, and the older two, they were like, no way, no way. So one other consideration for those of you who are starting, it might be harder to transition to homeschooling just because you're in school longer. And I just want to encourage, I've been meeting so many parents who desperately want their child to homeschool because of what's going on. But yet they're letting their children go back to the high schools for the social. There's very little social going on in the schools, right? And the masking and the mandates. And I cannot tell you the hundreds and hundreds of families who are pulling their kids even as we speak. And there are so many ways to meet other kids, to get real meaningful time and make really deep friendships, right? But here's where I'm going with this statement here. We call it deschooling, and that is a really important aspect for any of you who are watching this. And all that is, and I describe it more in my getting started, so I'm not going to go too much into this, but you want to kind of deprogram. You want to take a deep breath and take some time to explore, to dream, to see what the possibilities are for your family. So that's a really valuable thing, because we all have this concept that this is what school looks like, right? This is it. This is school. And no, school is just a construct and a way to learn. And it only hits about 20 to 25% of the population. So there are just, I want to expand your thinking. So another consideration is many parents have a tendency to want all-in-one curriculum. Just make it easy for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing, I don't want you to think that you can't do that, because here's the thing. If that helps you to get started and just is what you need to just get going, do it, right? I hear ACELS or Power, it used to be Power School, is advertising now everywhere. And it's like a monthly fee, very reasonable, but it's all online. It may not be what's suitable for your child. And you've got to watch my Getting Started webinar. Because I walk you through my whole system on figuring out what is good. But guess what? If that's what you need to do to get going, do it. Because you can always shift gears when you're homeschooling, right? But I do want to say a lot of times those all-in-one are not in the best interest of your child, because like the math may not be the way they get it, or, you're just getting all from that perspective, and sometimes the traditional learning when your child might need something else. Or, actually pulling from different curricula. So that's why I say that. Here's a great link. And you can just go to the NCAA website. If any of you have athletes, this is a definite consideration. This is something I've dealt with not only with my own kids, but with clients. There's no problem homeschooling and getting even D1 scholarships. Right now, one of my clients could have gotten a D1 scholarship at multiple schools, actually decided to go pro instead. Amazing golfer, I just have to say. So anyway, that is a consideration though. And you want to make sure that you understand that. You want to make sure, as a matter of fact, I may do an interview with someone that I work with. She's amazing on that, because she's a expert, right, in helping all athletes with getting into college. And then I've got more of the homeschool piece, but she is, so I'm working on that, and that'll be a different webinar for you guys. An IEP. All right. So, that's a consideration. That doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form that you can't homeschool if you have an IEP. As a matter of fact, if you have an IEP, that's kind of nice because it gives you a head start on actually getting accommodations for the ACT. Okay. Or the SAT. Not my favorite test, but if your child likes it better, go for it. All right. So homeschool laws. I'm going to run through this pretty quickly. If you want this more, and this is Illinois, just because I want to give you guys some orientation, watch my Getting Started webinar. There's one on YouTube. I have all of this on YouTube. I even think I say Illinois homeschool laws for a video, so you can go on there and watch it. But just in Illinois, these are the statutes. This is what you must teach, right? The branches of education taught to the children of corresponding age and grade in the English language. Okay. And these branches of education are language arts, math, biological and physical sciences, social sciences, fine arts. By the way, PE, health, you get that? Like my athletes, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have PE and more, right? Or, we were always outside doing stuff all the time, playing games while we did our spelling words, and right. You just don't even need to worry about that. All right. So in Illinois, we're considered a private school, a non-public school. That is a really important aspect here in Illinois, and that's very unique around the country. So the word homeschooler or homeschooling doesn't appear in our laws because our Supreme Court has said, no, if you homeschool, you are a private school. So there's no law requiring non-public schools in Illinois to register with any public school official. There's no such thing. You do not have to seek state recognition. Some private schools in this state, there are two layers, right, that you can do optionally if you're a private school to get recognition or registration. And to be blunt, it's a way for the state to get their hands on and to dictate what private schools do, because they review curriculum, teaching, lunch programs, extracurriculars, all of it before they'll give you that. And the only reason to do that is if you want to not just play other private schools in sports or be in a league for extracurriculars with other private schools, but if you want to play against IHSA schools, right? So they might jump through those hoops. All right. But there's no accreditation, there's no approval, no anything. But those of you who are in other states, these are considerations. These are things you want to check out, right? Is there registration? Is there some form, a form I have to fill out? In Illinois, no forms. Do not fill out forms. That is going around the state, and we are working on it. Okay. Withdrawing from public school, like I said, I have a Getting Started webinar, so I'm just going to run through this quickly. You don't have to notify anyone, but if your child has been, or you've registered them for this year, I, as an attorney, would recommend that you put something in writing so that you have a record of it, just in case, right? It can't hurt. But here's the thing, and I'm going to give you a link. You don't have to say anything other than I am withdrawing my child to put them in public school, right? That's it. Or I mean, to private school, is a public school, into private school. Okay. And I would walk it in. I would not send it. I would not email it. If you've already emailed and received a response from them, great, print it off. You've got your record, right? Which is fine. But I've been hearing from a lot of people and seeing a lot of posts in Facebook groups where they're not hearing back, or they're hearing back, here, please fill out this form. And I even just found from one mom that they're supposed to fill out the form like every semester that they homeschool, and they have to do this and do that and jump through this hoop and tell them what they're doing. Absolutely not. No, 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 no. All right. Here's what I was saying. I would do 2 copies, one for you, one for them, have them stamp it, walk it in, have them stamp it, say, hey, great to see you. We're pulling our child. You can say to homeschool if you want, but in the letter that I'm going to give you, just say we're pulling our child to go into private school. You can name your private school, which is kind of fun. Okay. The other thing I would recommend is faxing these days. Return receipt requested can be a little wonky because of COVID. Mailmen can sign it. So I would recommend walking in 2 copies. I think that's the best. And there's no reason to be contentious at all. If they ask you or tell you you have to fill out a form, just say, no, on advice of counsel, I don't, but have a great day. I'm not going to fill out any form. Okay, that's it. That's all you have to do. Here's where you should go in Illinois, sample withdrawal letter. Also Itchy, it's a resource I'll give you, has the same thing, withdrawal letters, requests for records. I tell people, yeah, definitely if your children are junior high or high school, you want to request their records. But even elementary school, it's very telling, either the lack of record or the amount of record there is, right? Yeah, so you can walk that in. I think in Illinois, you have about 30 days to request that once you withdraw. Private school, you really don't need to. But if you are and you're worried that they're going to send it to the public school for some reason, that's usually not the case. I mean, just like if you're going to pull your kid from Catholic school, you'd go in and say, we're not coming back next year, have a great summer or whatever. Okay. All right. I just want to reiterate, and I like to delineate things of what I've covered so you can see it here. And this will help those of you who are not in Illinois know what to ask and some things to ask. So no standardized testing requirement in Illinois, no state accreditation, no certified teaching requirement. In some states, they say you have to have a teaching certification in order to homeschool. No mandated number of days, no registration of your private school, no state recognition of your private school, and you're not required to fill out any forms, as I've reiterated. So here's some great resources. Most homeschoolers, and I'm going to run through this very quickly in Illinois, because you veterans that are watching this, I've learned over the last couple of years, I didn't know for the longest time how things kind of were organized in the state and how it was organized so that I knew we had a lobbyist working for us, and we knew when to sound the alarm bells and get to Springfield and jump on any bill that is, going to try to be passed to register us or anything like that. But here is how it's structured here. So these 3 organizations are statewide organizations. And I highly recommend that you join one or more of these if that's in keeping with your family and their values, because these organizations, each one has a representative on what's called the Ad Hoc Committee for Illinois Home Education. And honestly, that's the first website I tell you to start at, with the laws, and even sample letters are on there too, actually. So I would tell you what happens is, so because we're private schools in Illinois, which is so great, we so from that committee, we send one person as a representative to the Council of Non-Public Schools, which is the Illinois Council of Non-Public Schools, which is all the private schools they send a representative. So that is how, and then we hire a lobbyist. And let me tell you, that lobbyist knows what they're doing. Absolutely. And so by supporting these organizations, and it's such a minimal cost, it's like $25 a year. So even if you don't think I'm really going to use those, because that's how I thought for years, right? I didn't know that this is how it worked. Nobody explained it to me. But I started asking just because of my background. I'm like, so wait a minute, I hear about the lobbyists. How does that work? And I started asking about it years ago. And so I highly encourage you, if you're here in Illinois, to join one of those or more of those organizations. Like I said, I think they're like $25 a year. And it is so helpful. I can't even begin to tell you, especially now with the fight that may be coming, as we see hundreds of students. I don't know if you guys heard this in Illinois, and I believe this is going to be the case across the country. But they just said, I think it was yesterday, 22,000 teachers walked out of the teachers union and therefore aren't teaching in Illinois. And they knew it was coming because the ISBE superintendent issued a provisional licensing for people. So tell me, how important is licensing if really seriously now they're going to be like, yeah, you technically don't have your license, but we're going to give you a provisional one, because they're desperate. They can't find qualified people from that perspective. So I'm getting calls and emails, which I'm so excited about, to try to connect and put things together in the community, from teachers who just are so excited and nervous, but excited because they're going to get to do what they do best and what they love and teach kids, okay, without all the other red tape and garbage going on. Okay, so getting into homeschooling high school, initial considerations. Okay, we've already talked about, and this is true across the board, these are the core subjects, right, that colleges are going to be looking for. These are the core subjects when you're talking about the NCAA. Math, English, or language arts, but English, science, the sciences, and social sciences. In social sciences, we're talking psychology, business, sociology, oh my gosh, econ, government, all kinds, history, any history, geography, all of those, right, fall under social sciences. This is the coolest thing. You get to decide how those are met and how many credits are needed to graduate from your private school. So again, that is in Illinois because we're private schools, but in a lot of states, right? But again, you want to check your state laws, right? Check your state laws. And I did mention that I was going to put on here, I guess it's in my Getting Started webinar. Those of you who want to check out, who are watching from another state, go to hslda.org and look for, it'll say like legal and states, and you can just put in your state and see all the legal requirements. Okay. But this should help you with an orientation, like I said, even if you're not in Illinois. All right. But here's the key. I'm having so many parents who are just blown away by this. They can't wrap their mind around the fact that you issued the diploma. I keep having parents. I was just at a meeting last night where the mom was like, I pulled my kids, you gave me courage and I'm so excited, but I'm also scared. I just don't get it. Like, and she's Polish, right? She's like, how do they graduate? I'm like, you decide. Like when they graduate, the date they graduate, you issue the diploma. And let me tell you, it's very emotional for us homeschool moms and dads when you get to honor your child and issue a diploma, right? I mentioned about naming your private school, and I would recommend this in any state, right? Name your school. We called ours Crown Academy, and both because we follow the king and our God, and then also the kids just really liked, the idea of that, right? So we call it Crown Academy, and you get to decide, right, how these subjects, how they're met. Now, as we talk about, your next initial consideration is, are they college bound or not college bound? And here's what I say by that. There are definitely kids who know, they're like, no, I'm not going to college. I want to go the trade route, or I don't want to deal with that. I might get an associate's at the community college. Awesome. Trades, can I just tell you right now, oh my gosh, if you have a penchant for that, oh man, let them do it. Our infrastructure is going to start to crumble. We need that desperately. And the pay is phenomenal. This was probably 5 years ago now. My brother, who is a high school football coach in Virginia, was sharing with me that one of his students was like, you know what? I'm not paying that money for college. He invested $10,000 in getting training and apprenticeship in all of his tools to become an electrician. And at that time, he got his pick of where he wanted to go in the country, and the minimum pay he was offered was $75,000. And he took that because it was in like South Dakota. So it's like it's like double easily here in Chicagoland, right? The equivalent there. So I just want to throw that out there. So there are some students out there who are like, absolutely not. That's the route I'm going, right? So then those are other considerations and how you want to handle that. And then it's about meeting, like just getting it done. Like if they're done at 17, now I think 18, you kind of have to watch out for that. if they can work like in a shop or with someone before that, awesome. But I think officially, I think there is some kind of, and here, of course, we're in Illinois, a lot of unions, you know, you have to be 18 maybe or something, I've heard. Anyway, these are the initial considerations and what you want to think about. Okay, so there's step one. All right. And so here's what I also say. If your child's not sure, then my advice to all of you parents is when you talk to your children, just say, okay, that's awesome. You don't need to decide now. But how about as we plan this out, we make sure that we're keeping every door open for you so that in the coming years, we'll make sure that if you do want to go to college, we have set you up for success for that. Okay. So that's what you want to do the whole time, is make sure you're their mentor, you're their guide, and you are there to help make sure that they have as many opportunities open to them, but talk to them about that. All right. And it helps to cut through a lot of that contention that'll happen in the teen years, right? Because again, it's about their goals, their dreams, and the fact that, you know, have them agree. Do you want to make sure we keep all the doors open, right? Okay, so if you're college bound, here's what you want to think about. I would say no matter what the ages are as a mom, look at a variety of colleges requirements for homeschoolers. See if there's any separate for homeschoolers, because a lot of them have that. I think there's going to be a lot of shift coming up here now because of COVID and everything that's happening. So some of what I'm going to say here may change very quickly. I get actually an email that it goes out to all college admissions people and all that kind of stuff. So I keep tabs on that. And I'm sure we might start seeing some differences here because so many people now are going to be homeschooling. It's almost going to be more acceptable. But you want to make sure, I would say, look at 2 state schools, look at 2 out-of-state schools, and do this with your student, by the way, just to get them dreaming and thinking. So if they're in junior high, like 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th, any of those years, right? Just have them look at a couple private schools, look at bigger, multiple sizes, smaller. I recommend, if you can, especially before things shut down, if you've got a local university close by, go and walk the campus, look at it, see what's going on. And just to get a feel for, do I think I want a smaller school or a bigger school? My baby, you know, got to see everything from Harvard to Dominican here, which is like 500 students, because he went with all of his siblings and started in 8th grade. And he started to get a sense of, yeah, I don't want a huge university, but I don't want as small as like Dominican, right? So you kind of start to get a feel for what it is you're looking for. You're going to also look for, when you look, you're going to look for additional requirements for classes like languages. Okay, make sure you're specifically looking for what they're asking for homeschoolers. So for example, I can give you an example. At the University of Richmond, they did not require of regular students coming out of public or private school, even though we're private school in Illinois, they did not have a requirement of a language or a language requirement, okay, to be admitted. Now they did have, you know, if you didn't have, I think it was 3 years or 4 years of a language in high school, you still had to take it when you were there. But I'm talking about admissions requirements, right? So they would have them take, which are no longer, like an SAT subject test, or they had to show that they took above and beyond the number of years. Okay, is an interview and or visit required? Because there are schools who don't require an interview of anyone but homeschoolers. Now, here's what I have to say about that. My kids were like, ugh, I'm going to get an interview anyway. I'm like, good job. I've taught you well. Because they present themselves so well. They are so well spoken. They are respectful. They are intelligent. They can carry on a conversation. I train them in interviewing skills. And so they were like, yeah, I definitely want an interview. Like, that's important to me. So I do recommend that if you can, but there also are requirements for homeschoolers of that. Now, this is something, even with all the test optional schools going on, they may not be test optional for homeschoolers. So that's another thing you want to look for. Okay. And that might be a really important thing for your student, right? If they don't test well, it frees up a lot of time. By the way, an ACT prep class is absolutely a course. I would say a semester course. But a test optional school may not be test optional for homeschoolers. So that's another thing you want to look for. Okay, so now we're going to move into planning the high school years. Okay, so this is your child's education, and it is such a privilege. It is an honor. I want to change your thinking. It is so exciting. It's an incredible time because you're getting to join with them and help them thrive, right? So in many states, like I said, it's up to you what your student needs to graduate. Now, I've told you the parameters, like here in Illinois, but the number of credits, there may be a minimum in your state. Here, it is like ridiculously low. The academics, I think it totals 16, and or 16 and a half, because 4 of those are PE. So academically, I think it's 12 and a half credits. It's so crazy. You get to decide. So for instance, in our homeschool, the minimum number of credits to graduate in our homeschool was 24. And all of my kids did well above that. Okay. And you determine how they fulfill those credits. Okay. So here's the point. Obviously, if your child wants to get into college and go to a good college, which is what most of my kids said right away in 8th grade when we planned, you're gonna want to put together, right, a solid plan. So that's where I'm going with this. You want to sit down with them. Now, for those of you who have junior high schoolers, I recommend doing this in 8th grade, right? Technically, right? My kids used to say, wait, what grade am I in? Because what class? I'm like, doing geometry as a, 11-year-old or whatever it was, right? And they're like, I don't know what to tell people. I'm like, just tell them by age, right? It gets kind of confusing. But you want to sit down with your child and plan out the next 4 years or whatever's remaining. Like really have fun with this and sit down and dream with them, right? And what you want to start, like I say, the key here is sit down and say, hey, as of right now, and this can change, it's not this is not set in stone, but what are your dreams? What are your goals? Where do you want to go? I was amazed. Every single one of my kids, so here's how I did it. I would take them out to breakfast or like to the coffee shop and pastries. That was Caitlin. She's like, no, I just want the pastries and the coffee. I was like, okay. So, and then we sat and just talked and planned, right? Excuse me. And she had, a little bit of anxiety about everything going on. But by the time we were done, she was excited. And here I'm going to finish up that story I started to tell you. She was even excited because when we sat down and planned and I asked her goals and her dreams, she said, I want to go to a good college, Mom. And I said, okay, then you have to take and score well on the ACT and or the SAT. And therefore, I know how much you don't like math, but in order to do well, you're going to have to take math through Algebra 2 and some trig, because that is what you're going to find on the test. And she was like, okay. And that was it. That was it. And I told her, you do not have to take statistics. You do not have to take calculus. That doesn't serve your goals, your dreams at all. And it's totally fine. She's like, oh, really? Okay. Right. So she was done. Okay. And when it came up, when she would put it off and she would maybe in her math class, not do what she should have done and get her assignment in, I would just say, hey, it's your goals, your dreams. You might want to think about what you're doing. It's your GPA. I know you want a strong GPA. So, and that was it. And that was it. Here is an example of what we put together when I do in-person workshops. I give everybody this. It's real simple. You guys can put this together yourself. In the Discover Your Community, I got to change that. I just noticed it. So I have a Facebook group, which we've renamed. That's why DYC is not what it is. We have a private Facebook group, which is called Aspire Homeschooling, Aspire Education Homeschooling, I think it is, a private group. Now we just renamed it, so it was more in line with what we're doing. Because last year I was teaching everybody that you can have just a year of discovery when all this hit, right? So I just called it something different. But if you want to join that Facebook group, please feel free to join our Facebook group in there, and you can get this form in our resources. Okay. But here it is. And I would sit down with them with this form, and we would say, okay, so then freshman year math, here's where you're at, right? You're going to be taking geometry, and sophomore year, you're going to take algebra 2 trig, and then you're good. Then you're good. She kind of pushed it and ended up finishing in junior year. Okay. That's up to you. But she got it done. She's there. She didn't even have to take math in college because she scored high enough on their math placement test. She was happy camper. Okay. So it paid off, and it made her work at something that she did not enjoy. English, science, social sciences, health, PE. I put that on there because it's fun for us. So we would joke around and be like, oh, what do you want to do for this? And where does this fill in? But I also do it because I know parents are a little worried, and they're trying to really check all the boxes. And you don't want to hurt your child by not putting it on there. It helps their GPA. And that's what every other student has on there. So don't leave that off, right? And then electives. Okay. All right. So this is a question I get all the time. And this is what I recommend for keeping records. You will be set. You will be good to go. I'm going to show you the transcript that I use, which was given to me years and years ago to use through our gifted homeschool group. And I've tweaked it a little bit, but it's basically that. And I have gotten calls from admissions people who have said, oh my gosh, this is like the most amazing transcript I've ever seen. But here's the thing. You can go online and find all kinds of transcripts. But I am telling you that this one, it just stands out. It's amazing, and it's done by subject, but we'll get to that. Here's what you want to do for records. Make a file for each year of high school. So you can use, I recommend that you don't use an accordion file, because I think, here's why you'll see here. I would make a manila envelope, a manila folder or envelope actually, if you want to. That might be better if you don't want it sliding out or whatever, that's up to you. The manila folder that you can then set into maybe like we have not an accordion thing, but where you can put the file folders. So each child has like a box where the file folders are in there. Okay. Because remember what I said about critical thinking and leadership. So my goal is always to you're helping them with their executive functioning skills in keeping the records or knowing where to go for information. So I recommend that you have a file for each class. And when I say a file, like I said, it can be a manila envelope actually, if that's you feel safer about that. And what you want to put inside that file is a copy of the cover of the book you've used, a copy of the table of contents, the publishing information for each text or book used for that class. Then you're going to write the names and contact information for any outside teachers on the outside of those copies. So just write it right on there. Email, if there's a phone number, their name, even the date and time of the class, right? All of that information you're going to put on the outside. Okay. And you need it and you want it. Like if you ever have to contact them again, right? So then the other thing you're going to put in there for each course is a sample of work. And here's what I recommend. Especially if it's a course that's involved writing, you're going to do writing samples and put those in for sure. If it's an English class, you want to put in their papers, tests, midterms, finals. If there are projects and they're significant projects, take a picture of it, right? And if it's science related, oh, by the way, did you know they took science fairs out of public school now, or out of schools? Yeah. Okay. So much for focused on STEM, right? And competition. I think that's why it's like, you've got to be kidding. It's so much more motivating for us as humans. But anyway, I won't go there. So You want samples of work for each course in there. Okay. You don't need to do all their homework. You don't need that. Here's number 2. And a lot of people, this is like one of my, I wouldn't call it a secret, but it's something that is powerful, powerful, powerful. And that is make a list of all the books that they've read that year with the same copies as listed above. Because I also did a book list for my kids of what they'd read throughout high school, but well before high school. I just made a book list of all the high school level books they read. And my kids were reading those late elementary, very pick and choose for their content. But they were reading, so that's what I mean. So a list of all the books they read that year, right? And then I highly recommend that you do your transcript every year. Each one of my kids has a freshman transcript, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior transcript, right? And then senior year, beginning of senior year with their plan at the top, you'll see what I'm going to show you that in a minute, and then a final. So each of my kids in my records, I have 5, right? So you're building on it because it will help you. I can't begin to tell you. It won't take that long. You will feel so good about it. They feel good. I would always email it to them, right? And they're like, oh, all right, this is good. This is good. So that's what I recommend for records, okay? And keeping records. And there's another reason I tell you to keep this information for your class, because I do what's called a course descriptions document as well. So not only do I do a transcript and a book list, but I also do a course descriptions document. It seems overwhelming. It's not, especially like I said, if you just do it every year and you've kept those records, it's a no-brainer. Oh, the other thing I would do, like if you're in an outside class, which is what I highly recommend for high school. Okay, we're going to stop for really quick here because yeah, we need a smile break. I've been putting a lot of thought into it. And I just don't think being an adult is going to work for me. I feel that way sometimes too. All right. But what I highly recommend is that you don't have a lot of what are looked at as mommy grades. So in high school, you should not be the primary teacher of all the courses if you're heading to college. But honestly, that's not that important, right? But when you do the course descriptions document, if you can assure them and they can see that you were not the instructor, and you'll see on the transcript, there's a key at the bottom. And so all of my kids' colleges that they applied to could see exactly what was required of them. They could see exactly when it wasn't me. And honestly, my kids did take some classes with me because I was teaching worldwide online. And if they didn't do what I told them to do in my area, so don't feel like you can't teach your kids in high school, especially if you're passionate about it. You absolutely can. Absolutely. But here's the thing. I was also teaching other students. Like they were just one student in my class. Okay. All right. So again, we're still in that planning high school. So here are some things you want to think about. Online classes versus in person. If you watch, honestly, I recommend for all of you veteran homeschoolers to watch my Getting Started, because my system involves something and some things to set you up that if you do my process, and it's the beginning of my process, it will actually help you with your overwhelm that you get. So I think I might take that version out and start doing hey, are you overwhelmed? Are you an overwhelmed homeschool mom? Because here, if you haven't done these things, here's how you refocus, right? And part of that is taking learning style tests and defining what a good education is, your family core values. So that learning style, right? But if you're a veteran homeschool mom, you've already kind of determined in your kids, you've seen it, whether online, in person work better for your students, or maybe a mix, because there are some wonderful live online classes for high school. dual enrollment. What dual enrollment means, and it was wonderful to share this last night because there were parents there who were blown away by this, whose kids are in the public school and are in high school. And I said, you can actually take courses at our community college in high school. You get college credit and you're still a freshman when you go into college. And the parents were like, wait, what? You've got to be kidding. And I said, no. And here's the thing. One semester class in community college is equivalent to a full credit in high school. So do you see, as you take more of those, how it frees up your time also to do those things that you love and to start, like my kids, all 4 of my kids have worked since they were 15, right? So it opened up that opportunity to do that. And their sports, they didn't get so overwhelmed because they had the time, right? And especially a couple of my kids were travel ball and it was intense, right? And multiple sports. You want to think about life skills. I actually would do actual classes, and this is a very good one for a parent to do. Include books like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, like really good foundational books that they should read. Do that with them. Absolutely. So, you can have classes like that where they're learning life skills. I used to teach a class that I put together called Adulting 101. And I would go through the stuff with my teens, and we would talk about contracts, because believe it or not, they're signing a contract even when they're going to college for their housing, right? So, all of those different life skills, communication, maybe you do speech and debate, all of that, right? Creating courses. Oh my gosh, this is the best. You can create a custom course built out around your child. And I'm going to show you an example of one of my clients' ones that I did for them. It is amazing. And the reason I showed this one is because we literally made it a class every 4 years. I mean, every year for all 4 years, because he was just adding on to it. And he was doing things for his golf coach. And I found that out because I started working with them every week, and we were just talking, and he started to open up more and started to share. And I went, you've got to be kidding me. Like, this is amazing. We can build out a course around this, like incredible course. Okay. Moving into each of those, online versus live classes. Here are considerations that you want to think about. Your health and the current situation with what's going on right now, right? Like, do you feel like, oh, it might be better to start online? And by the way, the live classes, these teachers, and well, there are some that are better than others, who, they know how to teach online. It is not like e-learning, right? I felt badly for the teachers because they were thrown into online teaching, and it's so different. And to be able to engage people and to be able to manage chat while you're talking and all of that. And I did both, and it is complete. There are so many things that are so different. So I felt for the teachers last year because they had no training, no forewarning. But there are so many teachers out there who know what they're doing online. It's incredible, live classes. Okay. But I will share with you, if you're local, I would encourage you to look around, or if you're someone who doesn't want to deal with the mask, that's why you're pulling your kids. You don't, tons of homeschool families and people would last year, all year got together, right? They got together and taught, and, like someone would open up their home for classes and they would come in and take classes one day. And, so I encourage you to think about that, put it together. You don't have to feel like you're going to get shut down again and isolated. Homeschoolers were the least isolated last year, if you chose to be, right? Think about, excuse me. So sorry. Think about how your child learns best. Okay. And that's where those learning style tests that I talk about come into play. Level of academics, whether or not you want faith-based, what your local high school requirements are if you're going to be returning, right? Sports, extracurricular, right? The time involved, right? Whether or not you want to do online classes versus live classes. Because if you do online classes and you actually have even asynchronous, asynchronous means they're not live online classes. Okay, so there are amazing live online classes. Sorry. There are amazing live online classes. But there are also, it might be better for you to have completely what we call asynchronous, which is what a lot of colleges used to do pre-COVID, where you would watch a video to learn and then you have assignments and there was not any live interaction like we're doing right now. Okay. Other considerations, time and money, of course, right? What's your budget? How much time do you have? But I like laying things out for everyone to give you, like, what do you want to think about? What considerations? And I've already shared what synchronous versus asynchronous means. Synchronous is the live online classes. Okay, dual enrollment versus AP. So now we're breaking down the second thing that I talked about. And I've already kind of covered this, but your child can earn college credit while in high school. Now, here's the thing, a lot of parents don't know that a student can earn their associates and their high school diploma at the same time and still be eligible for college freshman scholarships, which are plentiful. Transfer is awful. That was one thing we learned the hard way with our oldest, right? Because by not going in at the beginning, and he was a really strong student, strong test scores, athlete, he lost out, I think, on really significant scholarship money. So that made a big difference. So he ended up paying more for his last 2 years than he would have, right? And it wasn't quite as inexpensive as he was hoping. It was still fine and good, but it's something to keep in mind. So how you do that, by the way, here's the key. You must earn your associates from the community college before you graduate from high school. And guess what? You get to decide the date they graduate from high school. So it's not a problem. You find out when their commencement is, when they officially graduate with their associates, and then you schedule your high school diploma ceremony after that. And it's fully dual enrolled and you're good to go, right? And then you can still go in as a college freshman for scholarships. Very, very important. Okay. I've already mentioned this. 1 semester of college equals 1 full year of high school credit. Okay. And keep this in mind though, not all credits transfer to 4-year colleges. Here's a great resource. It's called transferology.com. And it started here in the Midwest, but it has since expanded. More and more schools are joining this. I was amazed the last time I was on how many more schools were on it this year, which is wonderful. Okay. So you can go on and get some idea, but here's what I tell everyone. Don't rely on that. If you know that there are schools you're interested in, for example, when my youngest, when Mitchell was a senior, and he knew he had narrowed it down to which 4 schools he was going to apply to. I looked at like, okay, what classes are you going to take and will they transfer to the schools, right? And so that was an important part of that. Okay, so the next thing, walking down my list, creating courses. So course names and descriptions. Oh my gosh, you can make your students stand out so much than just going biology, right? What they see everywhere. And here is my trick, right? Look at college websites for some ideas. Use the colleges, right? And some of them are really boring and like, right? Just randomly go to colleges that you like, go to big universities, because a lot of times they'll have more, but sometimes they're the ones that are really boring. You know, go to some smaller colleges. That's where I find a lot of stuff, right? And look at the names and descriptions and put it together and say, oh my gosh, okay, that kind of sounds like what we're doing. There you go. And tweak the name, but you want to come up with something that stands out, right? But yet also is like, okay, that's a solid academic course, right? You're going to want to include written material. They're not going to want to see, just everything oral and verbal, and no, you have to have some material. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be a textbook at all. It can be articles, videos, other books in the field. And I'll show you that with the one I show you in a minute. These written materials, what I would do, for instance, with the one I'm going to show you, I said, I want you to just copy and paste everything that you're referencing when you're building out the website, or when you're doing social media, or I want you, because you look at stuff, right? And he's like, yeah, all the time. I was like, great, just copy and paste your URL into a document. Okay. And then we also added some books that were valuable, and one or two that his mom had made him read, we put him in there. Okay. Because it worked with everything that he was doing. Okay. So these are the kind of the topics. The bold here is, and you'll see that in a minute, this is what I have, like course name, right? Materials used. It won't say written materials, say materials used, work performed, right? This is the format that I use. That's why it's highlighted. Then themes, concepts, or issues developed. That is what they're going to want to see. And that is a concept that's out there within the public school system. Like when you have teachers and they're putting together their lesson plans, right? This is the type of thing that they do, right? What themes, concepts, or issues are being developed. Here's an example. Okay. So here is exactly what we did. And as you can see here, it's 4 years, it's college prep level, and we called it small business development and marketing. Okay. So small business development and marketing, because it encompassed so much. And it was such an intense internship, we turned it into a class. And here you can see everything. So course titles over here, work performed, themes, concepts, and issues developed, materials used. Okay, so we made sure, right, that we looked here, the psychology of selling, how successful people think, change your thinking, change your life by Maxwell, right? Because he was doing a lot of other stuff for him, and it was to help him and encourage him in his leadership skills with what he was doing, right? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. All right, so here's what it looks like. All right. Life skills. So here's the next category, right? So I'm throwing this out there. Can you tell where I'm biased here? Critical thinking, leadership, communication. Our children were required to know, it was important to my husband and I that when they graduated high school, that they could communicate well in writing and orally. That was so, so important to us, right? So along those lines, also critical thinking was in everything we did. I'll tell a quick story about that. One of my sons had decided he wanted to go to high school, and we had told all of our kids, if you want to go to high school, come and talk to us. We'll see where you're at, why you want to go, what you're thinking. And he came to us and said, I want to go to high school. And we knew it was mostly because, a lot of his friends, his homeschool friends, were going into public high school. He was a football player. He's a really good athlete, football player, phenomenal. But he wanted to go to high school. And I said, okay, thank you for telling me. We'll make sure we check all the boxes. And so our district had a test that all incoming 8th graders took, the Explorer test. So he took it also. And if you score in the top 20%, then you come back in and take a what they call a critical thinking test, because now they take the top, I don't remember how many students percentage wise. And now you're put into kind of this different category, even above and beyond like honors and AP. And it helped him to get into a program of engineering that they had there called Project Lead the Way, those types of things. And he was 35-ish out of over almost 900 students, like 890 some students. And that was the first standardized testing he had ever taken. Okay. And this was my child who also would cry at the word test, quiz, or if I set a timer. He would literally cry. So because we homeschooled and because I knew that about him, I was able to work with him over the years to be like, oh, this is no big deal. You know this, you've got this. And he also scored a 34, super score, 34, straight score 33 on his ACT. Not a problem, but it's kind of funny with the critical thinking. So I was dropping him off and I said, hey, you got this, you can do this. And he's like, Mom, of course I can. Like, you're the one that schooled me. It's critical thinking. Like, I'm not worried at all. And I was like, oh, that's good. And sure enough, he did very, very well. So those are vitally important. Anything I'll recommend to clients when I do my curriculum webinars, any of that, everything I do, I try to build in critical thinking. Or the curriculum that I will recommend is going to have a critical thinking component, a discussion, a application of knowledge is what I say that means within curriculum choice, right? That it's not just regurgitation. That is not thinking. It's taking that and truly doing the hard work of thinking, taking that information and now applying it and using it, right? As Henry Ford said, thinking is the hardest thing we'll ever do. And that is why so few people do it. Okay. One of a favorite quote. I love lots of quotes. So I don't know. My favorites are massive, I guess. Okay. So here I just wanted to give you some ideas and expand your thinking of amazing life skills and how you can build out courses around this and truly build out courses, time management, cooking, laundry, car maintenance, budgeting, by the way, personal finance, phenomenal. Dave Ramsey has a personal finance course that is really good, really, really good. That's huge. Interview skills, right? Email etiquette. Oh my goodness, for professors or businesses, teach your child how to not do text speak. Oh my gosh, I see that in emails, even from adults now, and it's horrible, right? No, oh my gosh, advocating for themselves, walking alongside them. Perfect example of that is my youngest also, you'll see him on the YouTube channel too. He's the other one that I interviewed, and him is like overcoming obstacles. He not only, has dyslexia, convergence insufficiency, brain vision stuff. He's also gifted, and he also got a severe concussion when he was 16. So there's just so much. He's one of the hardest working kids I know. Actually, I can't say kids anymore. He's 20. I officially have no more teenagers. Kind of crazy. I keep forgetting that. So anyway, when he was going into college, he had a call with the Disability Services office, right, to put his accommodations in place. And she literally said to him, we can just chat, because what you just shared with me is everything I try to teach students on incoming, and you just said it all to me. She said, I don't meet students, or I don't meet adults who know themselves so well and can advocate for themselves so well, let alone students. And, that's pretty cool when your student can hear, your child can hear that. And I was really thankful that they empowered him that way. He was also really sweet. He said, yeah. And I told her that's because of you. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. And that was really nice, but it really was him. He had to do it. And I did walk alongside him, and it was wonderful practice because he learned the hard way. For example, at the community college, I was very upset with them. He missed a deadline for one day. One of his really important accommodations is that he has a separate room, and they were like, nope, we're not going to accommodate it unless you do it so much ahead of time. And it was like one day after that, and they said, no, we're not going to do it. And I said, would you like me to? You should call and you should talk to them about that, because that is just not okay. And he's like, no, I don't know, I can do it, it's not a problem. Oh my goodness, it was a huge problem. It was terrible. He did horrible on that final, because he wasn't able to talk out loud. which is so important for his processing, and especially in math. It was a math class because his eyes don't see things. So he has to say, if he says it out loud and talks, he'll be like, wait, that makes no sense. There must be a negative there somewhere that I missed, right? Or things like that. And he can't do that in the big room. So that he learned the hard way of failing forward in high school, right? While he's here, but he wanted to handle it. And I said, okay. And guys, I should say ladies and gentlemen, that's one of the hardest things as a parent, is to let your child fail in a way, right? That's really hard, but it was a huge lesson. I told him, I said, hey, no problem. You've got more than enough credits. You've got more than enough on there. We don't have to put that on your high school transcript. It wasn't a grade that he wanted. He really needed to have a higher GPA. I said, no problem, but it will get sent to the school and you can tell them it was the semester after your concussion. What happened with the testing, that's, you talk to them about it, not a problem. And it wasn't. And he did it. He talked to them. He advocated, he shared why. He got into all the schools, very good schools, with huge scholarships. He's almost all paid for at a private, very expensive school. Yeah, so just that advocating for themselves, I like to share that story because that's not a small thing, right? It is a huge life skill. I already shared work, obviously, and this is one of my big things. And what I do miss about teaching is in every class, my goal was to help students understand how to have civil discussion and agree to disagree. It is a huge soft skill that's missing quite a bit. Okay, transcripts. We're getting to transcripts and we're almost done. Okay, so this is not difficult. I've already covered some of this. There are many free examples. Feel free to use those. They're very simple. A lot of people will pay, a little bit of money to places you really don't need to. But if you want to, no problem. If that makes you feel more comfortable and confident, go for it. That's a service I provide to my clients when I'm working with them just automatically, especially my one-on-one clients. But you absolutely, can do this. It's not a problem. Oh, and in my community and group coaching, I will be providing all of these documents and you'll have access to all of this along with my help. So just so you know, that is something that's kicking off. My first one, I'm super excited about. It kicks off on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. And that's not what I'm about in here, but it kind of fell into that. So if you're a part of that, for example, you'll have access to all of these documents. Okay, so basics, you want all your student information, which includes social security number. You'll see one in a minute, birth date, address, phone number, credits needed to graduate, class name, grade, year, right? The basics. As we've talked about, you want to make an impression. You want to stand out. So this transcript that I used for my last two, like I've said earlier, previously in this video, is I literally got emails from multiple admissions offices saying, this is incredible. Like, we don't see transcripts like this, right? So that's kind of cool. As I already told you, I also provided detailed course descriptions, document, and book lists, and I'll show you that. So here's what my transcript looked like. As you'll see here, it is, and I highly recommend this, it is subject-based, not by year. And colleges really like this because they can see, oh, here is what they did, right? Okay, let me look at English language arts. Okay, so he had, all these different classes, and keep in mind, this is his senior year, so not his final. And I show this one because I want you to see what I do, because when you are applying for colleges, when your student is applying for colleges, it's in fall of senior year, but they want to know what is on tap, right? What are they taking and are they finishing strong? So that is why we have senior year course plan. So every year when I did their transcript, that's where I also, with my planning, it was wonderful. So it would be junior year course plan, right? If they finish their sophomore year, or sophomore year course plan after their freshman year, right? So we would have that. So as you can see here, he ended up with like 5 different language arts classes. And it's, again, it's wonderful. Oops, shoot, that's not good. Sorry about that. Oh, there we go. He could, or the college admissions offices can get a much quicker, better picture, right, of what it is that he took. And they can see where, how he is, where he's strong. And also they love it because you can break down the GPA per subject area. So like for Mitchell, it made perfect sense that a 3.75 GPA in language arts, because he's got the dyslexia and he's got other things that were a little tougher for him with the reading, and it took longer and things like that. Okay. Yeah. And so you've got your language arts, your social sciences, mathematics, science, modern languages, electives. Okay. And the next slide, he had a lot of classes, as you can see. So I wanted you to be able to see all of the electives, and see, I put physical education, we put driver's ed, right? Because he had to take the classes, and you would put that on a transcript in regular. So that's one I get asked about a lot. And in school, they will have that. He did ACT, SAT prep. Actually, I switched that on his final because he ended up just focusing on the ACT. So I just put ACT prep. Although I think that class did have some. So here's what I wanted to also show you now, is down here, the key, right? Or down here is where you're going to tell them kind of, what everything means, right? So you're going to say, I was the primary instructor, and I put this down because this is vitally important for NCAA. If your child is going to play, or you want to make sure you leave that door open, then you have to be the primary instructor of every single class. Now, what that means is your name goes first. I'm going to actually go back here to this. See down here where I say grade, content development, and then supervisor. Do you see how the mom is listed first and then the other person, the other instructor? And they could be the one that did everything, but here's the key. You, as a homeschool parent, are issuing the diploma and have final say. And with the NCAA, it has to be a homeschool course. Therefore, you have to be the primary instructor. So that is why that you see that here. He is one of my athletes that wanted to possibly play in college. So we made sure of that. Okay, so you can see, we make the key down here. Whatever it is you need to do, like here, this is a very common one. Denotes, I do with asterisk, denotes high school course taken before high school. You can put those on, right? So like he had Algebra 1 and Spanish 1 high school level before he entered high school. Okay, so you can do that. And I put in there, like I told you, I taught myself in outside courses. So I did denotes an outside class taught by me, right? So they knew that. I also give a guideline, and I was just asked this recently by a lot of people, like, okay, how many hours, like how many, don't worry about that. Seriously. I mean, if you're getting them into quality classes and they're doing the curriculum, you're doing whatever it takes to master it and move on. You've got plenty. But by rule of thumb and guidance, I broke it down and figured it out. And so every class, they spent 150 hours is one full credit. Okay. And obviously that is going to be not 150 hours for a college class, but they know that, they get that. Okay. And it's a college class. Okay. And then you've got, your kind of legal certification there on the transcript. Okay. Okay, so this is the end. I just wanted to give you a few resources for buying curricula. Those of you who are, homeschool moms extraordinaire already know all of these, I'm sure. But here are some wonderful resources. So you've got homeschoolbuyerscoop.org. Oh my goodness. join that. It's free to join. Think of it as like the Costco of curriculum. So the more they will do specials and deals all the time on curriculum. And the more people that buy it, the lower the price goes. So you can even set, okay, if it goes, I want to cap it at this. You know what I mean? Like you can say, I will only buy it if it gets this low, right? So it's super cool. And then they'll automatically purchase it for you if it hits that level. Rainbow Resource is a phenomenal place to buy curricula. Homeschoolfreebie.com is not necessarily buying curricula, but it is a wonderful resource to get free stuff. And then they also have some stuff to pay for that's very unique. And it's a homeschool family that started this business. So I really like to promote it because you get some amazing stuff. I got all these old radio shows from them that were so much fun to listen to, all kinds of things. And then christianbook.com. Okay. All right. So I am done, and I'm going to take any questions from the two that are here live, if you guys have them. But if you'd like, I have no problem turning off the recording. Sometimes questions are helpful for other people. So just let me know if you want me to turn off the recording before I ask questions, if they're personal. How do you guys feel about it?
Either way is fine for me.
Okay, great. Then we'll keep rolling. All right. So do you guys have questions?
My first question, and I should turn on a light, I see from the video, is do you have a kind of like a document that you can send us that has all of the slides on it?
I don't give out my slides.
Okay.
I don't send out my PowerPoint or my slides.
Okay.
But you will get a link either later tonight or tomorrow, and you'll actually get a link to both my Getting Started webinar I just did and this one. And so you can see it and recreate it. But I will be putting these documents as resources, so you can get like the planning and the transcript and all of that. And they may already be in there in my private Facebook community or in my group coaching program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Great. Any other questions?
I had a couple questions.
Sure, go for it.
One was just about a little more about dual enrollment, I guess. Like, I think that's a great idea. I think it's awesome. How do you actually get started? Like, you go into the college and say, we want to do this, and how would you kind of decide which classes you want to do that for?
Absolutely. So here are the different rule of thumbs. First of all, you want to go to the website. So Sandy, if let's say you're in CLC's district, right? So the best one around here is Harper, but they are pretty strict about working with homeschoolers. They require you to wait till you're 16 because they feel that the emotional needs to be there. It's not necessarily the intelligence, but I do know a couple of homeschoolers who started there at 15. Like they were close and they were like, okay. But CLC and College of DuPage, for example, are very, very homeschool friendly, and even at the youngest age. Okay. So let me give a perfect example. I have a client, his daughter's really, really gifted in math. And I recommended, instead of like, she's entering freshman year and she's already going into calc. Yeah. So I recommended to her that I would recommend that you look at the community college instead, and even take their math assessment, because she hasn't taken the ACT. So to answer your first question and kind of wrap it into one, you're going to go to their website, and most of the websites have a homeschooling pages, and you will go and they'll walk you through it, right? And like, for instance, at Harper, you will fill out their homeschool forms, and you're going to attach a transcript depending on what age they are, right? And at Harper, you're going to have one because you've had 2 years of high school already. So they want a transcript. They want to see what you've taken. If you've taken the ACT or the SAT, for example, one of my students, one of my kids, my Jackson, who got 33, 34, obviously it was a no-brainer. He could take anything he wanted because he met the threshold. But they will walk you through the process. And one of the things they require there is that we actually go in and we get assigned a counselor. So that was our next step. And we go talk to them because they have to approve any courses for dual enrollment that he wanted to take. Because they, at Harper, they want to make sure, so they interview the student, and, you know, and I'm there as well. And they talk to us because they want to get a sense, okay, are you going to be successful at this? So that's how Harper works. And my kids never had any problem taking anything they wanted. But if they're younger, like this client of mine, the other way that you can go without having taken the ACT or SAT, right, is they have assessments. So they'll have a math assessment and also a language arts assessment. So if you go in saying, I want to take English 101, right, you're going to have to take the language arts assessment. And CLC, I know some students who've taken classes at CLC at 13 and 14.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can go young. And here's the key thing. You asked, how do you know they're ready? The number one thing I would say is emotional maturity, because this is a community college class, period. You are putting your child in the environment of a community college class. And something I didn't talk about in here is community college isn't the only way to go. Like in our area, there are amazing four-year schools that have dual enrolled courses, like Trinity. So if you're a Christian, you might want to look into those as well, like Trinity International or Judson University. And they will all have, Trinity's website, I'll be honest, is terrible. Like you have such a hard time finding their homeschool stuff and all of that. Just contact them because they love homeschoolers. They just got to get on the ball with a better organization on their website. But they're wonderful and they love homeschoolers. They love to expand. There's not as many courses to choose from though. But then if you're a Christian and you want to make sure there's a different environment, but keep in mind they're going to class by themselves. Like mommy's not going in with them. So I say the number one consideration is emotional development. And you as a parent know that they're ready and can handle that. Number two, in terms of academics, it becomes pretty kind of clear. Like it just depends. Again, it's hard for me to answer that because, for example, this client that I was talking to today and whose daughter is at that stage, she was just going to keep going with their curriculum. And I stopped her and I said, I'm going to recommend this. She's like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, oh my gosh. But again, is she emotionally, are you confident and comfortable in that? And she said for a math class, probably, because you're not talking about the world stuff, right? But that's what you have to think about, right? Is you want to take that into consideration.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks. Let's see. I did have another question. I don't want to hog the floor.
No, please do. No, you're great. These are great questions.
One more thing. I was just wondering what you think or have heard about online portfolios for college admission. Like, do they want that? I've heard people saying like, transcripts are important, but, put stuff online, make it fancy and, show more projects and things you've done. Have you heard anything about that? Or?
Yeah, sure. I have. If you want to do that and that's your bailiwick, go for it. You do not need to do that, but you can. And honestly, that's a great project. Let's say your student is really loves that and is gifted in that area and wants to put one together, go for it. Go for it. Yeah.
Those are the only questions I had.
Those are great questions. Those are awesome. But I do want to share that you don't have to have those. You really don't.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the Common App is something, and that's a whole nother discussion, right? There are lots of things. Otherwise I'd be here for 5 hours with you guys. So college admissions is a whole nother kind of conversation, right? But like to explain like what the Common App is and things like that. And so with the Common App, you can load up anything you want. And that's why I encourage because here's the thing with homeschoolers. They want to see that solid base. They want to have that confidence, right? But if you want to take your book list and make it look pretty and fancy and use it online and just give them a link to it, go for it. Yeah, no problem.
Can you just share a little bit about what as a consultant, what services you offer or how that would work if we wanted to do that?
Sure, absolutely. So the first two things that I offer that I mentioned to people is that system I was sharing during the video. I have a curriculum assessment system, and this can be done at any time. So I do offer that for up to 2 kids per family, where I literally walk you through, like I was just emailing some new clients, like their homework, right? Where they're taking learning style tests. I use personality testing that I've worked with for decades because it's just so powerful and really has a lot of, it really helps a lot when we're building out, the year and when I recommend curriculum. Then I am that community group coaching program that I just mentioned. I'm super excited about that. Only 30 families per group. And I just have the one group right now. There's still room in it. We're starting on Tuesday. And I'm really excited about that because I wanted to make something more affordable than my one-on-one coaching, right? Because that's obviously a little more when you're going to have me one-on-one, but I'll share that in a minute. So the community group coaching, I'm going to build community in there as well. Like there's a private chat channel where you'll have access, to chats with people in there, but also, my team will be in there. I'll be in there, right, when I can. But every other week, it's 13 weeks, and I'm going to do 3 13-week sessions. So you're only committing to 13 weeks. You can decide after that if you want to stay a part of your community or not. Totally fine. And in each 13-week session, every other week, so there are 7 weeks that you're getting me one-on-one. And you get to ask questions. We're going to work through whatever it is you need. Obviously, it's not too long of a time. You just, it'll have to be really quick. But a lot of times you'll have a question and it answers 3 other people's question, so it works pretty well usually. But the point is, and then in the opposite week, so it doesn't take too much of your time also, I'll be dropping informational videos. So on the website, you can see the topics I'm doing. And I will tell you, I'm walking through all of this process and holding everybody's hand to really, dig in and determine what curriculum and all of that. So you'll get that in there, just not one-on-one. You'll be applying it yourself and doing it yourself. But you can ask like, okay, we got this, and this, what would you recommend or whatever. The point is, I also though won't stay with that, depending on who's in the group and where the group is at, right? I'm going to give you information based on what everybody needs in the next week. I'll be doing videos just for the group and dropping those. So you can watch them whenever you want. You'll have access to all of that while you're a part of the community. And then my other services include one-on-one time. So I have, because not everybody obviously can afford, you can just purchase an hour, but I wanted to drop that price a little bit. So there's a quarterly one-on-one coaching, and that is for every week you get an hour with me, and it can be you, it can be your student. I love working with students. For example, last whole year, actually, I had a family who hired me with 2 of their students, right? So they did 2 of those essentially. And every week they wanted the hour with them. And then sometimes the mom would come in, she's a veteran homeschool mom, but she would come in and say, I need your ideas. Can we brainstorm? And she would take the hour that week. Does that make sense? So there's that you can do it quarterly or annual, like they did an annual. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So those are my services that I offer. To try to help as many people as I can.
Cool.
Yeah.
A good goal.
Yeah. Yeah. These days, I got to tell you, Sandy, my heart goes out to these families, right? You and I made the choice pre-COVID
to be thrown in and
yeah.
It's hard. And
Yeah.
there's so many, I can't believe how many new families I'm meeting. And like every co-op that's still left is just overflowing. I feel like everyone I've talked to,
they don't have room. They're all closed.
Lists and yeah.
But lots are forming. As a matter of fact, I went this week to help a community of parents they're trying to form a co-op and they wanted some help. And
Oh, that's great.
yeah, so I do stuff like that too.
Awesome.
And I also, that's not up on my website. I need to put it up there. Hopefully you won't ever need it, but I also serve as an expert witness.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So actually, yes, one of my team is like, get that on the website. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I guess I need to put that on there, don't I? And it's kind of sad that it's needed at times, but it's actually going to be needed quite a bit, I think, because people just don't understand what homeschooling is,
Yeah,
so
definitely misunderstood.
it
which
is
frustrating, but
yeah, it is. But I think people are starting to get it, and that's kind of my mission.
right.
Yeah. So feel free to direct people when you hear from them. Feel free to direct them my way and tell them to go to my YouTube channel and watch the videos. I try to load up as much as I can, and I'll keep doing these webinars and more different ones.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. This was very helpful. I feel like it helped to just kind of have the lay of the land with the homeschool stuff or high school stuff.
Awesome. I'm so glad. Yay. And
Cool.
I'm so happy to meet you.
Yeah, you too. I feel like I've seen your emails throughout the, over a couple of years now, I guess, but I've never actually met you.
I know. It's so fun to get to meet people now. And yeah, so you said Sandy, I'm like, oh, I know you.
It's awesome.
That's cool. Bye, Emily. Thank you for coming. You were so nice to give your mom this time. Yeah. Good night.
I'm not sure what that is. All right, I'm gonna head out because we need to get somebody to bed here.
That sounds great. And we'll end here. And thank you so much for coming live. I'm so glad I could answer your questions.
Yeah, this was